Hello everyone, this is Aaron. In this class, we're going to unpack the relevance of the story of the Chrysanthemum to today's society. First of all, I'm going to talk about it from my own perspective as a Chinese peasant born after 1990. Then my British colleague, James, is going to cover mostly the same content, but completely in English. This is going to be fantastic English listening practice, so I suggest you listen several times until you get it all. And now, without any further ado, let's begin the class. 采菊东篱下，悠然见南山。山气日夕佳，飞鸟相与还。诗句出自陶渊明的佳作《饮酒结庐在人境》。著名翻译家杨宪益和戴乃蝶夫妇将诗句翻译为 While picking asters 'neath the eastern fence, my gaze upon the southern mountain rests. The mountain views are good by day or night. The birds come flying homeward to their nests. 读这首诗的时候，最大的感觉就是陶渊明对于生活的满足。华中师范大学的古代文学教授戴建业曾经在一本研究陶渊明的著作中表示过，陶渊明一大特点就是遇到什么样的困难和挫折，在他眼里都不是事儿。我们的故事里提到陶渊明仕途不顺，不愿意为五斗米折腰而归隐田园，这首诗就创作于那个阶段。虽然政治生涯是失败的，但是浪漫的生活滋养了陶渊明的文字，并无限地影响了后人，成为了古代文艺青年中的精神领袖。苏轼、欧阳修这些大文豪都非常崇拜陶渊明。
While picking asters 'neath the eastern fence, my gaze upon the southern mountain rests. The mountain views are good by day or night. The birds come flying homeward to their nests. This poem comes from Tao Yuanming's masterpiece, Drinking. When reading this poem, the greatest feeling is Tao Yuanming's satisfaction with life. Dai Jianye, a professor of ancient literature at Central China Normal University, once said in a book on Tao Yuanming that one of the characteristics of his writing is that whatever difficulties and setbacks he encountered, they seemed to mean nothing to him. It is mentioned in our story that Tao Yuanming's career did not always run smoothly, and he was not willing to grovel for 5 pickles of rice, and so retired to the countryside. This poem was written at that stage of his life. Although his political career was a failure, his romantic life provided inspiration for his writing and has provided immeasurable inspiration for all who came after him. He became the spiritual leader for young people in the world of ancient art and literature. Su Shi and Ouyang Xiu all greatly admired Tao Yuanming.
同时，我们从故事中还能看到陶渊明与菊花的关系。他觉得菊花能很好地代表自己的人生观和价值观。实际上，上千年来，植物一直在激发艺术家的创作灵感，并用作比喻人格魅力。在西方，你可能会想到梵高的向日葵、莫奈的睡莲或罗伯特彭斯的红这些作品。到了现代，有一位西方诗人用了一种非常不同的植物来向我们介绍他的经历。他的名字叫 Carol Ann Duffy。在2009年，他获得了英国的 Poet Laureate 这个头衔。这个头衔在许多国家都有，而且非常特殊，意味着这位诗人的作品能代表民族精神。他有一首著名的诗叫 Valentine 情人。之前我们提到了他在诗中描绘了某种植物，你可能会以为是玫瑰啊、勿忘我或者其他象征爱情的花朵，但是实际上他描写的是普通的洋葱。他用洋葱来比喻剪不断理还乱的爱情。他先开始描述洋葱的外观，像月亮一样。在不同文化中，月亮都是一个很有吸引力的形象。在当代和古代的中国文化中，有无数艺术家把月亮作为创作的主角，包括李白的《静夜思》以及邓丽君的歌曲《月亮代表我的心》等。而就像陶渊明用菊花的性格比喻他们对待恶劣天气的适应能力，来比喻人面对困难坚强不屈的特性一样，任何一个切过洋葱的人以及谈过恋爱的人，如果读下面这一句话，都会有共鸣。It will blind you with tears like a lover. 它会让泪水蒙住你的双眼，就像爱人一样。 之后，他又对洋葱的气味进行描写，表达爱情如何与人同在。A scent will cling to your fingers, cling to your knife。它的气味会粘在你的手指，羁绊在你的刀上。大卫用了一种非常不同的植物来表达他的观点。然而，像陶渊明一样，这种拟人化的描写令我们大多数人都能感同身受。当我们从自然界中寻找灵感时，它往往能教会我们很多关于自身的东西。
Tao Yueming used chrysanthemums to great effect in his writing. In fact, for thousands of years, the flora of this world has inspired the arts and been utilized as a metaphor for personality traits and interpersonal relationships. In the Western world, you might often think of Van Gogh's sunflowers, Monet's water lilies, or Robert Burns' Red, Red Rose. But today, I'd like to talk a little about someone a lot more recent who managed to use a very different plant to teach us something about the human experience. Her name is Carol Ann Duffy, and in 2009, she became Britain's Poet Laureate. In many countries, Poet Laureate may seem quite an unusual title. It essentially means that she is classed as the national poet of the UK. Her most famous poem would probably be Valentine, and it is this poem I'd like to talk about today. I've already mentioned that it uses some kind of plant, so you would be forgiven for thinking that maybe it is about roses, forget-me-nots, or some other beautiful and symbolic flowers, but it is in fact about the humble onion. She uses an onion as an extended metaphor for romantic love, and depicts both the positive and the negative factors. She begins with a physical description of an onion and likens its appearance to the moon. Across cultures, the moon has always been a very evocative image. Some of its most memorable usages in contemporary and classical Chinese culture include its depiction of romance in Teresa Teng's song "The Moon Represents My Heart," and the way Li Bai used it to represent longing for his distant hometown. Tao Yueming used the physical characteristics of chrysanthemums, such as their resilience in harsh climates, to bring life to his metaphor. Duffy uses the characteristics of an onion in a similar fashion. Anybody who has chopped an onion or experienced heartbreak will respond to the lines, "It will blind you with tears like a lover." She goes on to use the smell of an onion as a representation of how this human emotion will stay with you, as she states, "Its scent will cling to your fingers, cling to your knife." Duffy used quite an unusual plant to get her point across. However, like Tao Yueming, she used it to craft a description of something very human that most of us can relate to. When we look to the natural world for inspiration, very often it can teach us a lot about ourselves.